afternoon, everyone. My name is Rohit Gakhoti. I'm the new Simulation Education Fellow at this facility, and I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to showcase what I'm doing or expected to be doing in the next 1 year. I've just barely started. This story is partly my story. Simulation, as we know, is a situation or environment created to allow participants to experience a real-life event. And the purpose, of course, is learning, practice, education and testing, gaining an understanding of systems or human behavior. And medical simulation is more or less exactly the same, except involves medical scenarios, simulated medical environment, and simulated medical scenarios for the purpose of learning and critiquing. And it's been around. To put it in perspective, this is royal French midwife from 1800s in Louis XV's court, Madame du Coudray, if I'm pronouncing right. But she used to use simulation to teach junior midwives about childbirth. And of course, simulation has come a long way. This is not too good photograph of the same mom. And there's been increased skepticism about what all modern simulators can actually do, whether they can actually recreate the complex medical situations. It's not just about going from A to B. It could be going from A to B via Z. So can they recreate that? But increasingly, the modern simulators are actually achieving that with regards to teaching and training people. And the history of simulation actually started with the high-risk industry of aviation, petroleum, and nuclear industry. They would always use crisis resource management, crew training, and learning from critical incidents to teach their staff. And started way back in 1929. Started in medicine in 1969. So we started 40 years late, and we are still catching up. In 1986. An anesthetist in Stanford, US, by the name of Prof. Gaba, who thinks doctors should be trained like astronauts. They should not only be taught what they're doing, but they should be taught crisis management to the point of extreme technical failure, earthquakes, mass emergencies. He is probably the father of modern anesthetic simulation. So what does simulation do? How does it work? For people who've not been around in our area, I'm happy to show them around during lunchtime or later, but it is basically a combination of a control room, a simulated virtual reality environment, and a facilitation or a debriefing area. And the learning is actually, it's a cyclical learning. So it allows creation of safe environment to teach technical, not technical, or both skills, to elicit responses, obviously identify areas for improvement, reflection, which is actually the crux of learning in a simulated situation, and eventually run trials and report on errors. And the beauty of, apologize for the spelling mistake over there, but the beauty of simulation-based learning is actually that it allows all spheres of learning to take place together. Now, people who are probably aware of the Kolb's learning cycle, everyone is a different learner. But the beauty in simulation is that all types of learners can be engaged, whether it's contextual learning, experiential learning, or reflective learning. And of course, there are other reasons that you could practice scenarios which are very rare events. In A&E, they've already started to assess trainees for situations which A&E trainees may not see. And this is, there have been summative assessments for trainees in anaphylaxis and anesthesia in A&E, and they're already doing those drills to assess them. Of course, there are problems about this form of assessment, but yes, we're very well on the way. And there are, apologies on the spelling mistake again, I think I've moved from the old format to the new format, which is why this errors. But there is a strong element of psychocognition which affects memory and emotion. To put it as an example, learning is probably better. I mean, from your own personal experience, you would remember the good events and the bad events more than just the normal events or a normal day, and that's because that bit of learning was in the brain, stored with a bit of neurotransmitter drive. It stays in for a long time. Simulation does that. When you actually come in a really virtual reality environment, you know you are on cameras, you are activated, there is an adrenergic rush, and that probably helps learning. That is very well sort of scientifically documented. And of course, it provides a very safe environment. There's no risk to the patient. Ethical reasons, yes, junior trainees can run on various simulated scenarios before they are let loose. And there has been a popularity for training in anesthesia for almost the same reasons. There is a bit of realism. There's no risk to the patient. You have a predictable, programmable response which can be reproduced again with various trainees. It could be repeated, could be videotaped and seen again. And you could stop the scenario, restart it. So things you could not do with a real patient. And it's probably never going to replace a real patient, but it will take you there as a better sort of experienced doctor. And this is the experiential cycle I was talking about in simulation. Well, the real simulation experience might be just 10, 20 minutes. The knowledge which comes out of it takes in the debriefing phase, which is the 45 to 50 minute sort of sit down and discussion as to what has been achieved and what can be achieved based on the experience. There are various types of simulators, and the learning doesn't have to be from the complex task trainers or the realistic patient simulators. The really advanced scenarios, we know that advanced life support and ATLS can fairly run on models and mannequins, which are fairly low fidelity, and there is learning. But the high fidelity simulation brings cutting edge with regards to crisis resource management, human error recognition, non-technical skills, and these are the keywords which you would see and hear in sort of improving patient safety and reducing human error again and again, because they can recreate scenarios where a lot of these phenomena can be recognized and corrected. It's also being used in checking organizational safety. One of the proposed projects in Hull is to use serious untoward incident-based learning, and we are working towards it. But yes, there are lots of plans which are already learning using simulation. The human factor bit, which I sort of quickly touched on, basically defined as an individual behavior or a social behavior which affects us, and so it can affect the technology or an environment where we are involved. And NPSA says that 80% of errors which happen in medicine are attributable to human errors. And again, simulation can help identify and probably even rectify most of these. And yes, I was talking about aviation. Petroleum industry used to be one of the most dangerous industries. What they have done in last half a century is to become one of the safest industries. As you can see, less than 1 death per 100,000 encounters, while healthcare, which is defined as 1 medical admission, is as dangerous as bungee jumping, mountain climbing. I don't think I have time to sort of touch on the evidence behind it, but a quick touch on what I could find on the internet about those keywords we had been talking about, the human factors, and this is the CMAC report then from 2003-2005, and the words sort of touched in red include poor or non-existent team working, lack of sharing of information, poor interpersonal skills, lack of cross-disciplinary working, all of that sort of pointing towards the importance of getting these out of our way, hopefully from simulation, if not from something else. And again, a closed loop communication, which is generally followed in the army and quite a few medics also follow that in an emergency situation, whatever is said, whatever is meant is not said, and whatever is said is not heard, and so on. It's not, whatever is meant is not understood, basically. And in a closed loop communication, which is encouraged, if you are told to do something, you just repeat that, what has just been said. All right, so you want me to do this, just to re-emphasize. And this by itself, along with SBAR, those of you who worked in New York, right outside the labor ward or outside the anesthetic room, is a chart put up as to how to communicate. I try and use this even otherwise, not always though, but it is a good framework to sort of explain everyone what's going on when you approach them for crisis resolution or emergency. So, what's the evidence? Well, as you would understand, trying to acquire evidence that simulation is better than any other form of teaching is a very tiring exercise, a very difficult one. So the evidence is out there. It's slowly coming out more and more as we speak. And whether it will eventually, whether it's cost effective and whether it will improve performance to the extent that it will improve patient outcome, there are increasingly more and more such studies that are coming out in this regard. My fellowship actually is most of what I've discussed, including what I've quickly highlighted over here. But my fellowship is more about this. It is about imagination. It is about perseverance and a lot of passion. To quickly summarize, simulation is a very useful educational technique. It can teach you procedural skills and non-technical skills, and it is a promising tool for a variety of other things like teamwork and communication. Obviously, it needs to be tailored according to the learning objectives and to the level of participants. And does it need further integration into the curriculum and development of networks and a lot of support from specialist societies and royal colleges. And I didn't want to end on a somber note, but I think this works well as a life philosophy. Yes, simulation is good, but you learn a lot from other than books. So simulation fits in particularly very well. You learn a lot from your own enthusiasm. Never have the books sort of highlighted on perseverance, innovation, and passion, while that takes you very far off. And I did say I've landed on a high, so I'm going to show you that. Perseverance and passion. India winning the World Cup just a couple of days back. Thank you. Thank you for listening.